Scared for Reals.
Hey, it's Chris O'Neill.
Adam Perry.
50 years ago this month, in February, the world came to know who Shinichi Sonny Chiba was. I mean, the guy had been in films for over a decade, but the Street Fighter is what made him a worldwide cult figure. I mean, it was a huge success, don't get me wrong. It wasn't like a household name at that point. He was a huge cult figure.
Sure.
So the Street Fighter, and it's such a huge pop culture item too, the legacy for that movie, people are still talking about it to this very day. So let's get into it. Adam, when did you watch it again? Because you've seen it, what, a couple times?
I watched it a couple times when I had cable. It played on the El Rey network.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. It is violent.
Right.
It is violent. It's got it's got an X rating.
It was the first U.S. movie to receive an X rating solely for the violence. Because 4 or 5 years before that, Midnight Cowboy got an X rating, but that had a lot of sexual
that had nothing to do with violence.
No, there was really no violence in Midnight Cowboy. But this movie just like nonstop blood, gore from start to finish, and we're going to get into the ins and outs of that and also talk about Shinichi Sonny Chiba as well. Adam first saw it on the El Rey network. Now, my journey with the Street Fighter started with True Romance back in 1993. I'm just a teenager watching this really slick film written by Quentin Tarantino, whom I didn't really know at the time. Tony Scott, I was familiar with Top Gun, and I'm like, this is not a Top Gun-like movie. It was probably the most un-Top Gun-like movie. Right at the beginning of the movie, Christian Slater wants to go and see 4 kung fu films starring Sonny Chiba, and that was my introduction. The clips in the movie, I'm like, this doesn't look like a bad movie, but I didn't really think much of it. And then I saw Sonny Chiba a decade later in Kill Bill. I mean, he had a small part in that movie. Again, he was cool. I heard a lot of great things about Sonny Chiba, but I'm like, okay, not that big of a deal. I do want to watch the Street Fighter movies at some point, but I think when I looked, they only had the English dub versions, and at that time, I wanted to watch a movie in its original format. I was starting to dip my toes into the world cinema aspect of things. So, I mean, fast forward to 2020, I think, 2019, 2020, I picked up I blind bought the Shout Factory Blu-ray set of all 3 Street Fighter films, and I bought the Arrow video set of Sister Street Fighter, which was the spin-off. And I was just like, I was hooked, and I wanted to get my hands on any Sonny Chiba movie I could get my hands on. In my opinion, he is the most charismatic martial artist superstar out there. I mean, I know a lot of people disagree. There's Bruce Lee. I'm not going to, I put him on par with Bruce Lee as far as charismatic martial artist.
Yeah, he's definitely charismatic. I mean, he captures your attention right away.
Right. And
his martial arts is absolutely beautiful, especially as we were talking about before we hit the record button. What I really like what he does is he, as a martial artist and a fan of martial arts, is he sticks to traditional karate and traditional karate movements, especially in the Street Fighter. Whereas, the flavor of basically the time and going forward have been all the mixed martial arts that Bruce Lee brought to us. So, I mean, to see, strong traditional movements like that, in use is pretty cool.
Right.
It's really, really cool.
And another thing that, because Shinichi Chiba, which was a stage name in itself, he felt very strongly about how important martial arts was, and the Bushido, as they call it. Then there's the breathing techniques, which it's very unusual for a martial arts, an action-packed, gore-filled martial arts film to go deep into the importance of martial arts, the breathing techniques, all of that. Mm-hmm. And again, it doesn't go into like a whole 20, 30-minute long thing, but it kind of shows how important martial arts is,
Right.
And he literally said in an interview, it looks kind of cheesy in the movies, but you could literally put your finger through someone's flesh with, and just by doing a certain technique. And he was not a fan of martial arts movies showing, them killing others with the martial arts. And he obviously he needed the money, and he became a huge star. But he always kind of wanted to be above those kind of movies and try to ease his way out of action movies. He wanted to be taken seriously as an actor.
Right.
And, he did go on to do other action films where martial arts was not the focus because he didn't like the way they wanted to use martial arts in the movies.
Sure.
Because that was a way of life for him. It was important to him, and he didn't think, showcasing how it killed people was a good, showcase for martial arts.
You hear a lot of that from like the really, really serious martial artists in films and stuff like that. And they're right. Because you're basically, if you go to a good school, a good school is going to teach you the last thing you want to do is to have any sort of physical confrontation. You want to avoid it at all costs.
Right.
And movies, like the Street Fighter and you name it, whatever gets your kicks in the martial art film genre, it does. It glamorizes and exploits the violent part of the martial arts.
Right.
And so I understand where that comes from. I guess that's where you need to really make sure you teach your viewers, especially the younger ones, the difference between real life and entertainment.
Right.
And really hammer that there's entertainment and then there's real life. And in real life, we're not ripping out people's throats.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. The movie was not for kids, but he did like those certain sequences where it shows, the young people training to be martial arts. It does kind of show the importance, not just, blood and guts. And
yes.
Kicking and punching and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. The stuff that looks great on camera.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're talking about Shinichi Sonny Chiba and his value of martial arts. Let's just talk about him before we really delve into the Street Fighter here. Now, his real name is Sadaho Maeda. And they actually, Shinichi Chiba is a stage name, and then Bob Shea added Sonny Chiba to all of that. So, but yeah, he was really into sports. He was really into gymnastics, and I don't know how much of this Adam. He really wanted to be in the Olympics. He wanted to represent Japan in the Olympics, and he was going to.
Yeah.
But he had a back injury, and that kind of sidelined him, unfortunately, which is kind of unfortunate because, he was really passionate about that. He not only gymnastics, but track and field. He also played baseball, volleyball. He participated in like 4 sports championships while he was in high school. And
wow.
Yeah. Artistic gymnastics is what they called it.
Yep.
He won all of these sports awards and everything like that. And it's just too bad. He also, while he was studying in the Sports Science University, it was like 1957 or something, he also began studying martial arts.
Yeah, I was just looking at that now.
Right.
Kyokushin Karate he's 4th Dan black belt in Kyokushin Karate. Chris,
Yeah.
I don't know if you know much about Kyokushin Karate, but that is one of the hardest and toughest forms of karate.
Well, I don't know much about karate, but I know there's a lot of discipline involved.
There's a lot of discipline, but in Kyokushin Karate, the emphasis is on bare knuckle full contact. So basically, when you're training in Kyokushin Karate, you don't usually punch to the face when you're training, but
Right.
you go all out on the body. Head kicks are, they have it's like their own sport called knockdown.
Right.
And basically you get like 3 minutes with your opponent to just beat the hell out of them. Bare knuckle, you only punch to the torso, you can kick to the head, and it's basically the first one to give up or go down, loses. And he's got a 4th degree black belt in this. Gojinru Karate, a 2nd Dan, that's basically the first Okinawan traditional karate.
Yeah.
Kempo karate, that was a more American style, different style. He's a 2nd degree black belt in that. Judo, hitting someone, the art of hitting someone with the earth.
Well, not only that's
Second Dan.
using their energy against them.
Yeah.
That's what judo is. I remember that. But
Yeah, it's a lot of throwing, a lot of grappling, and then kendo. Kendo is swordplay. He's 1st degree black. The guy did it all.
yeah. He was just very athletic, very dynamic. And, well, so unfortunately, I mean, he was a series candidate for being in the Japanese Olympic team. But the back injury, as I mentioned. So
did it say what sport?
I believe it was gymnastics from what I'm reading here. It doesn't really say exactly, but I mean, he's artistic gymnast, and he did all sorts of track and field. I mean, he probably could have represented Japan in all of the sports because he won all these championships for all of the sports he played. But it was around 1960 he decided to. I mean, he was always into movies. Mm-hmm. He used to love watching the American westerns like Shane, High Noon. Yeah, those are the movies he was really interested in. So he was discovered in a talent search by the Toei Film Studio, and that's where he blossomed. But so I guess they didn't like Sadaho Maeda as a name, so they changed it to Shinichi Chiba. So he started appearing in these superhero shows. It wasn't like Marvel, but they called them tokusatsu, which basically means like special heavy effects laden TV shows. Yeah, could have been sci-fi,
kind of like Ultraman type.
Yes, Ultraman, and the guy who did all the visual effects for Godzilla. I think he was like the go-to guy.
Gotcha.
for visual effects. But he was in a couple of those shows. You know, Seven Color Mask was one of them. But yeah, I mean, he then, like in the early 61, 62, he started showing up in these sci-fi, military, crime drama films as like a secondary character. But his big breakthrough was Bodyguard Kiba, Karate Kiba. I believe that's how you pronounce it. But that was his first major starring role, which was a year before the Street Fighter. But not only that, another interesting thing he did, he started his own training school for aspiring martial art, film actors, stunt performers. I don't know if you read about this. It was the Japan Action Club.
Interesting.
Yeah, and the woman who would play Sister Street Fighter, he kind of was her mentor. He kind of guided her career.
Wow.
He trained her on how to do some of that stuff, the stunts and everything. And so he had there was a couple of those. Bodyguard Kiba was the American title for it. There was two of those movies. And then the Street Fighter. Now, this was interesting because Toei was looking for their martial arts superstar. Because, I mean, Bruce Lee was gone, but Japan really wanted their own martial arts superstar.
Right.
So that's where the Street Fighter came in. It was called something different in Japan. It was not called the Street Fighter. And then he got into international acclaim because Bob Shea of New Line Cinema, he was just starting at that point. He was looking for the next Bruce Lee type character, and he went to Japan. He sat through a bunch of martial arts movies, from what I understand, but he really was impressed with Sonny Chiba. He called him Sonny Chiba in an interview. Sonny himself said, yeah, probably because Shinichi is too hard to pronounce. But lo and behold, a star was born because these movies were successful. I mean, they were really successful movies. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's the plots for all of the three Street Fighter movies are so similar. Him having to deal with these gangsters. There's one that had to do with drugs, and there was trafficking and all sorts of stuff. But the first one was really interesting because you see that he's a mercenary. He's a martial art mercenary type that, I mean, he goes and, tries to get this guy. He's paid to do these unsavory things, like a murderer, freeing him from jail.
Right.
I mean, he's literally, being in the movie, dressed as a monk. Puts the guy in some sort of coma, making people believe he was dead. And then he frees the guy. They ambush the ambulance. And then his brother and sister come. And actually, the sister in that sequence is the one who would go on to play Sister Street Fighter. So, I mean, that was like her first movie. And I think, again, she was training with Sonny Chiba, not only martial arts, but the whole movie career kind of thing too. So. So yeah, there's that subplot, which, none of the plots really kind of, give you like a reward, satisfaction kind of feeling at the end. But I mean, it's just a showcase to show how much of a badass Shinichi Chiba was,
Basically. I
I mean,
mean, it's, again, we talked earlier, it was an X rating. This is a violent movie.
Right.
I mean, just blood squirting everywhere, necks being torn out. I mean,
extremities being torn out.
I mean, again, like, it's, you watch it now, it's almost like to a comical level, but at the time, it was,
no one had seen anything
intense,
like that.
It was intense stuff.
Now, no one in America had seen violence portrayed in such a manner before. So you got to imagine, you go to the cinemas in 1974, you're thinking you're watching like a Bruce Lee martial arts movie, and it's totally not like that at all. It's very violent. And like you said, he portrays martial arts in a more serious fashion in the movies.
A more traditional fashion. Traditional.
Yeah.
Like I said, the big thing that Bruce Lee, we can credit Bruce Lee giving us is mixed martial arts, because he did so much different stuff, and he shows that in his movies. Chiba here sticks to the very traditional, Kyokushin karate now, and traditional karate movements.
Right.
Like I was joking earlier, like stuff that you would see Bruce or Elvis doing on stage in his later career.
Yeah, like
but this is
with
with his feet and the grabbing, mimicking that he's grabbing the guy's neck. And, it's I mean, you watch at 1971 Elvis, he's doing karate on stage as he's singing, and it's basically what Sonny Chiba is doing in this.
Yeah,
but he's making it work.
Right, and he does, and he again. He gets frustrated with that brother and sister because they can't pay him. So, well, hell with that, and he moves on. And now his whole thing was, he would do all sorts of stuff, but apparently he does have his lines, like all of these guys, like Transporter and all these mercenary types. They have a line they will not cross. Mm-hmm. And after he discovers that the gangsters he's working with are Yakuza, and also mafia, and there's the Hong Kong crime cartel, he's like, I'm not doing this. And of course, because they basically want to take over this woman's oil business. Her father dies. He was this rich oil tycoon, and the business goes to her. And they want that for themselves, especially the Hong Kong businessman, so he can have more control over his have more domain, so to speak. Mm-hmm. He wants to move into Japan and work with these Yakuza gangsters there, and a guy who has and they don't really go into the whole drug trafficking kind of operation. It was kind of interesting how they kind of touch upon that early in the movie, but they don't really go into it later. It's kind of dismissed, but to focus more on this Hong Kong crime boss who's trying to spread his crime syndicate into Japan. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, they of course, after he doesn't want anything to do with it, well, he knows too much, so they got to kill him, and that just and there's a lot of inspirations. Zatoichi, the blind swordsman, they kind of pay homage in their own way by having a blind samurai in there. And there's all sorts of interesting henchmen that he has to face, and of course he gets beat up, and then there's they kind of fool them, and there's all this cat and mouse, and nothing that we haven't seen before. But the focus again is watching Shinichi Chiba, in all of his brilliance, dazzle and razzle dazzle, so to speak. And I mean, the charisma is just oozing off this guy. Yeah, he doesn't make these screeching noises, but it's the breathing techniques. He explains in an interview, it helps ease the tension, gets him more focused. Yep. And he just kicks major ass in there. And it's literally eye-popping, literally. In the second movie, a little karate chop to the back of the neck pops the eyeballs out, apparently.
Yeah, and again, in traditional, when he gets hit with a sai, it's cool. It's cool. I mean, it's it's as traditional martial arts as you can get, and
Right.
and that's fun. That's really fun. But again, understandably, I can understand why he was frustrated with
Right.
these type of movies too, because again, if you take yourself seriously, and the last thing you want to do is to fight.
Right.
It's
And that's the thing with these movies. There's some martial arts focus, but there's the exploitation factor, which was a big deal in Japan at that time. And
even the music made it sound like an exploitation.
Kind of. Kind of. But it rises above it because again, they do show the important sequence really added nothing to the movie.
Yeah.
It was just kind of thrown in there,
Mm-hmm.
But you can kind of see X-Men kind of got a little bit from that, it was just I just can't imagine being in a movie theater. You've never seen that. I mean, we've seen that violence so many times before.
Exactly. And again, for someone to watch it today, they would kind of chuckle at it because the blood spring is comical, and even the blood, it's got that 1970 orange blood, hammer horror type look to it, but still,
But yeah, I mean, it's just it's so like, again, the violence is so cartoonish now, and it may be dubbed cheesy, but at the time, it's just like, whoa, you didn't expect something like that in this nature. But yeah, Sonny Chiba, he did these 3 movies, and then he had a small part in Sister Street Fighter. He was, again, he wasn't Terry in that movie. He had a different name. He was actually training people at that dojo school and helping her out, get revenge on her family. Getting her brother is kind of an undercover cop, and it's just so unbelievable. She's sitting there. The cop is like, "We think this assignment would be good for you," and she has like no police training. So okay, let's just give it. You just throw her out there. Again, you have to just say, hey, let's just watch this movie for entertainment because it's because it's just so many unbelievable scenarios in it. But and you get to see in the first 3 Street Fighter movies how athletic the guy really is. I mean, there's one scene where he's literally doing these stretching exercises upside down, and the phone rings, and he's literally hand walking, and he does his backflip, kicks the phone off the receiver, and has a conversation. It's like, it's pretty impressive. Yeah. There are no wires or strings attached to him.
Well, I mean, he was a legit gymnast. I mean, he could do stuff like that. So why not showcase it?
Well, and I said, well, isn't that amazing to my wife? And she goes, well, it's a gymnast. I kind of expect it.
Yeah, exactly.
Artistic gymnast at that.
If he's not doing that every day, you'd be disappointed.
Right. Right. It was just like Burt Lancaster doing all of these dynamic stunt sequences because he was a trapeze artist,
Right.
So it's okay. We expect it from him.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, Shinichi Chiba, he also did all of his own stunts, and it was very interesting. There's a couple of tidbits of information here you may or may not know. When the Street Fighter was in production, and actually Sonny Chiba was nearing the end of one of his show runs, Bruce Lee was really interested in working with him. They literally, through some mutual friends, he got to meet Bruce Lee and talk with him because Bruce Lee wanted to be involved in a project with him. We'll never know, to be a fly on the wall in that room to hear what kind of conversation those two had. But it was for some sort of project, and of course Bruce Lee was working on, the Game of Death at the time, and who knows, he could have been one of the 5 or 6 villains that he had to face. Yeah. So, I mean, who knows? I mean, we'll never know.
I mean, he probably would have been way more entertaining than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Well, but I mean, let's.
That was like the only cool sequence. But the show he was working on at the time was Key Hunter. It was a Japanese TV detective series. So you want to talk about like a busy shooting schedule, okay? The Street Fighter Returns, and The Street Fighter's Last Revenge, and Sister Street Fighter all came out in 1974.
Oh, wow.
They all came out same year. And at the time, he was working on this Key Hunter show. I mean, it kind of wrapped up in 1973, but it was just like, man, this guy was like between the Bodyguard Kiba movies, the TV shows, the Street Fighter. I mean, they really churned him out a lot of films back in the like if you look at the 60s and 70s in Japanese movies, especially the lower budget crime, martial arts, action, they just churned him out, boom, 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 one after the other, especially the Toei studios.
Yeah, but I mean, they don't have the type of union that the states does with the Screen Actors Guild. So I'm sure they could get these guys under contract and just make them work. I don't know the contract with the studios because I'm sure there's some sort of limit to that. I mean, someone like Kurosawa's nature for Toho, you're not going to force one of the biggest moneymakers for your studio at the time to, you got to work 20 hours. I don't think so. But yeah, it's just one of those things that could have been because Chiba's schedule, it just didn't work out at the time. But he did go back to Hong Kong, and that's where he learned about Bruce Lee's death. So that ended that. But another interesting thing, Sonny Chiba said it a couple times in interviews, at the premiere of one of the Street Fighter films, Jackie Chan wanted to meet him, and they had a big conversation. They talked about stunts and all that kind of stuff, and they made a promise to keep doing stunts as long as they could. Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. I mean, Jackie Chan was a huge fan of Sonny Chiba.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell him his stuff, especially, again, Jackie Chan, not to take away from his martial arts and his practice, but, I mean, his movies are more about his stunt work than it is his martial arts. He does a beautiful job interweaving them, but it's the spectacular stunts that Jackie Chan became known for, rather than his Southern style kung fu.
Right.
And Shinichi Chiba did some pretty cool stunts, and I don't know if he fell off like a cliff or anything like that. Like that happened a couple times with Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
But so the Street Fighter movies, they were a big success because Bob Shea at New Line, he was looking for a martial arts superstar, only wanted 3 movies. And I think, to be honest, Shinichi Chiba was glad that there was only 3 movies. He probably wished there were less.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you notice Bodyguard Kiba, there was another couple of movies he did called Yakuza Wolf, something like that. So there was a couple of those movies, but I mean, they were just churning them out. All these movies, he must have done like 15 movies in like a 3-4 year span. It's just crazy how fast they churned them out.
Like I said, that makes me wonder what the, at least at that time, the studio makeup over in Japan was again.
Right.
Because it used to be like that here in the States. I mean, you just, movie after movie after movie after movie, and then the Screen Actors Guild went in and put a huge halt to that.
Yeah,
you couldn't work your actors, 24 hours a day whenever the hell you wanted anymore.
No. So I mean, you had those 3 Street Fighter movies, and again, you watch these movies. I highly encourage you to watch these films if you love action movies, you love cult films. The Street Fighter movies, they're just incredible. The amazing, charismatic Sonny Chiba is just you watch it, you'll see why I think he's the most charismatic action martial artist superstar of all time. I mean, granted, I have like 24 of his movies, so I mean he has more of an opportunity to grow and develop, whereas Bruce Lee only had 3 movies, and Jackie Chan wanted to do more comedic stuff.
Right.
So, I mean, it's amazing that we get all of these Sonny Chiba movies, because when I was growing up, the Street Fighter looked like a cool movie to watch after seeing True Romance, but it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go to the video store and rent it. It's like,
couldn't get it.
Well, if it was there, it was the badly dubbed version, and I watched the Godzilla movies when I was a kid, and I enjoyed them, but it was like, man, can I see that in the original language? And it wasn't an option back then.
Right.
Now you have like the whole world at your fingertips when it comes to cinema. You can watch it in any language and any format that you so desire. So it's great that we have all of this, and the huge legacy, you know, before we talk about the Blu-ray releases, I mean,
well, we got to address the elephant in the room. The name of the movie is The Street Fighter.
Yes. I mean, and again, that was what it was called in America. It was called something else in Japan, but it just kind of stuck with the movie, you know. And remember the game Street Fighter, the video game in the 80s,
that's
Adam?
the elephant in the room.
Yes.
Because, I mean, you ask any American kids, say Street Fighter, they're going to either find the video game or the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. They're not going to find this.
No.
So, I mean,
it was inspired.
It inspired the game.
Yes.
And not only did it inspire the Street Fighter game, I'm also reading here the X-Ray Vision Fatality.
Yes.
You know, the other great combat game, Mortal Kombat.
Right.
You know, fighting game.
And that was the interesting thing. That whole X-Ray Vision Fatality finishing punch move. I mean, it was just a gimmick. I mean, the filmmakers and the people involved, the Toei Film Studios and the director, wanted something to differentiate between martial arts films. This is our own martial arts movie. Again, like what you said, focusing on the traditional martial arts. It was not like the other, like Shaw Brothers doing all these fancy schmancy moves, and you know Bruce Lee mixing martial arts. It was none of that Jackie Chan comedic stuff. This was traditional martial arts. Yeah,
and that's the charm. To me, that's the charm of the movie.
Right.
You know,
but you also get like X-ray fatal punches.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, like you said, I mean, I could not bring myself to watch the Mortal Kombat movies, but the fighting games.
I'll make you watch the Mortal Kombat.
No,
the first one, 1995. We'll do a show on it.
Well, as soon as you finish the other two Vengeance movies.
Okay, I'll do it.
All right. So yeah, the X-Ray Vision Fatality finishing move that you see in the Mortal Kombat fighting games, you can thank that movie. And of course, Hong Kong action films, like one I can think of, Ricky O, The True Story of Ricky, has a scene where he delivers an X-ray punch too.
Yep.
So that one I haven't seen all the way through. Have you seen that one?
I have not seen that one, no.
It's pretty intense from what I understand.
Yeah.
But of course, True Romance, Quentin Tarantino was a huge fan of Shinichi Chiba, and for years, I think it was after Reservoir Dogs, he went to Japan to seek out Sonny Chiba, and it just they were both. The schedules didn't jive, but he finally got to meet him, and of course he cast him as Hattori Hanzo in a very memorable cameo in Kill Bill. That was kind of resurged his career for a little bit, and he retired, and unfortunately he's no longer with us. But man, oh man, just to be on a fly on the wall, just to hear him just meet with all these famous people, just to be inside the Japanese action place where he trained all these people.
Not only that, and again, that's from a movie, making standpoint, or as a film fan. But I mean, think of it, if you're a martial artist, to be able to sit and pick his brain, we've listed all the arts that he had black belted in, and how important the martial arts were. So to have a serious conversation about the martial arts with him, movies aside, would have to have been, a lifetime worth of knowledge that he could shed on you,
right?
And, share with you.
Oh, I know. And he was very serious about martial arts.
Sure.
He was probably more just as serious about that as he was about his movies. Because, again, he wanted to be taken seriously. And there's a non-martial arts film I can think of, Adam, that off the top of my head that you should really see is Bullet Train. It was a 1975 Japanese film. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, there's some action on the train, and there's the shooting and stuff. But Shinichi Sonny Chiba he's the guy piloting or conducting the train.
Yeah.
So he's not doing any fancy schmancy moves. He's like glued to trying to be a technical guy trying to solve the problem of the train. So,
right.
And he has one of the lead parts. It's like an ensemble acting kind of thing. But
wow,
it's like almost 2.5 hours long. It was, I think they were trying to, do a disaster like film like Airport and Towering Inferno, which were big in the 70s. So Japan wanted their own little disaster movie.
Piece of the pie.
But yeah, they're gangsters taking over a train, and big inspiration for Speed. I mean, huge.
Yeah.
This movie, Bullet Train, if you ever get a chance to see it, Adam, you'll definitely see, you got to keep the train at this level and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, But, Shinichi Sonny Chiba, what a phenomenal guy. He also played bad guy roles, supporting roles throughout the years. I mean, there's one where he's this evil samurai, and he's not in the movie that much, but he gets the best action sequence. You see him jumping around with a sword. This is the early 80s, so he's still in like top form, slicing and dicing. He almost kills the head samurai in that movie.
Yeah.
So it's what a career Sonny Chiba had. What a legacy. Again, not as known as Jet Li, Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee. It's unfortunate. He never seems to get mentioned in the same breath as them. He's just as good, if not better, than they are. That's just my opinion.
Unfortunately, the thing is, and I think we've touched on this before in other episodes, especially talking about the Shaw Brother movies, and it just comes down to timing, man.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, Jet Li, they had their moments where there was a window to cross over to American mainstream, and they did it.
And he did too, briefly.
He did briefly, but it didn't catch.
It didn't catch as big.
With the American
audience. It was still very
audience.
successful.
Yeah, no, I'm not suggesting it is.
But
the American audience didn't catch.
It didn't. He didn't become a household name. They were like, "Oh, Sonny Chiba, we got to go out and see his movies," because very few movies in America had Sonny Chiba, because in Japan it was Shinichi Chiba.
Yeah,
it wasn't Sonny Chiba on the big screen. You watch I have several of his movies, and it's always Shinichi Chiba.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah.
The nickname Sonny was outside of Japan, and the only real success he had outside of Japan was the Street Fighter films and Kill Bill.
Again, just going back to my point is it's not that he didn't do great work and has a tremendous legacy. It's just with the American audience, even though he did some stuff over here in America and it did translate, it just didn't catch like Bruce Lee. It didn't catch like Jet Li.
I think he could have, but he chose not to go down that route, because I think he would have been very successful as a renowned worldwide international superstar, and it would have been great because Toshiro Mifune, unfortunately, when he went international, because international audiences loved Toshiro Mifune and all of his Kurosawa films.
Right.
And going to Hollywood, unfortunately, it wasn't a huge success for Toshiro Mifune. And it would have been great for a Japanese actor to get that kind of clout. It's just unfortunate that didn't happen. But the Japanese action school that he created, again, he had that Sister Street Fighter lady that came out of that. And another big name that came out of that big acting school, or the action school that Sonny Chiba helped mentor, was Hiroyuki Sanada. Now, you probably remember him, Last Samurai. Remember him in that one? He was Ujiro, and he was also in the final John Wick movie there.
Yep.
He had a brief little run in Hong Kong. He was an action superstar there for a little bit. He was in some movies, and he got his start being trained by Sonny Chiba. Unfortunately, there's like no Japanese actor. Ken Watanabe had a little tiny bit of international success with the Last Samurai and The Dark Knight, but he's in Dark Knight for like 5 minutes. So, and he had some with Godzilla, the King of Monsters, but there's no Japanese actor that's really had a huge worldwide impact. Closest was Toshiro Mifune, but unfortunately, I think Sonny Chiba could have easily eclipsed all these guys because of his charisma. He just didn't want to go that route. He wanted to focus on serious roles, and I think he enjoyed helping mentor these young aspiring martial art filmers. Highly recommend the Street Fighter trilogy. Again, there's a couple of options. You can get the Shout Factory Blu-ray set, which was released 4 or 5 years ago, Again, there's not a lot of special features, just a couple of interviews. Arrow Video last year had an awesome re-release of the Street Fighter trilogy. There's still not a ton of features for it, but there's a booklet and there's some more in-depth information, more in-depth features than there are on the Shout Factory disc. Again, I got the Shout Factory one because I've held off long enough watching these movies. Both of the transfers are really decent, so depending on if you want more features to go with the movies, Arrow Video's the one to go, but you've got to get like a region-free Blu-ray player because, again, Region B, Shout Factory owns the license in Region A, so they can't, it's like a butting of heads, whoever owns the rights to it. So Arrow Video owns the rights overseas. Shout Factory owns the rights to the Street Fighter trilogy in America. And then watch the sister Street Fighter series as well. There's 4 movies in that one.
Oh, wow.
And Arrow Video put out a nice set of that a few years back. So, I mean, you've got plenty of great martial arts cinema to keep you company. But yeah, February 1974, every year, as much as my wife gets annoyed, I have to watch the Street Fighter trilogy all the time, like clockwork. And you should too. Again, they're amazing films. I mean, the quality of the plot and all that kind of stuff is not the greatest, but again, Sonny Chiba, a showcase for his martial arts, his charismatic. I mean, it's really hard to beat Sonny Chiba in the Street Fighter films.